If your phone rings, it just can be very embarrassing. So put it on vibrate so you don't get embarrassed. You have a little idea of who is Krishna, right? The speaker of Bhagavad Gita. Do you know who is Krishna? Yes. Okay. He spoke Bhagavad Gita, right? He spoke Bhagavad Gita when he was about 125 years old, but he looked like he was 16 because his body is all spiritual. So time may pass, but his body doesn't age because his body is all spiritual. And when Krishna appeared in his childhood activities, he lived in the countryside with his mother and father, and his main activity was taking care of cows. Moo. And his father had a lot of cows, 900,000 cows. That's a lot of moose, and a lot of calves too. So that was his childhood until he was about 11 years and 8 months. When he was 11 years and 8 months, there was a request for him to come visit the king for a big festival in the city. So he was growing up in the country, taking care of cows, and he was invited to come to the city. The city's name was Mathura. The village was Vrindavan, and the city was Mathura. So that was the capital of this really wicked, diabolical, bad king. He had one wish. He wanted to kill Krishna. But that was a big mistake because it boomeranged and he got killed instead. So the king, his name was Kamsa, he tried this and tried that, and finally he called upon one of his chief ministers and told him his plan of how he planned to kill Krishna. Now it turned out that the minister, his name was Akrura, was Krishna's devotee. So when he told his plan, how he was planning to kill Krishna, he told the king, "You're inviting your own death. Surely I'll be the messenger. I'll be glad. I've been waiting for the opportunity to see Krishna." So it's a very nice, very, very beautiful description. He has this very new chariot, kind of like a Rolls-Royce version of a chariot, because the king thought he'd get really proud of having this special chariot. And he was just absorbed in the thought of what it's going to be like when he meets Krishna for the first time. It's really, really wonderful. Anticipating of meeting Krishna is the mood. And he's thinking what it's going to be like, and he's absorbed, anticipating. Oh, it's really nice. We should be like that. And when he saw the footprints of Krishna in the soft sand, he fell out of the chariot and rolled in the dust to put the dust from Krishna's footprints on his head. And then he looked up and he saw Krishna. But first it was his footprints, and then he saw him. And there was this wonderful exchange between Akrura, who is Krishna's uncle, a family relation. Many things happened, but eventually Krishna was ready to go to Mathura in Akrura's chariot. But along the way, Krishna said, can you stop the chariot? I'd like to take bath in the sacred river Jamuna on the way. It's a whole chapter on what I'm going to describe, but just do it quickly. So he went to take his bath. Krishna and his brother Balaram went to take their bath and then came back to the chariot. And Akrura said, can I now take my bath? Because he was the chariot driver. Krishna said, sure. So when he went to take his bath in the sacred river Jamuna, what did he see? He saw Krishna and Balaram in the river. And then he looked back and they were in the chariot. They looked again. It wasn't Krishna Balaram in the river. It was Lord Vishnu reclining on Ananta Shesh. And then he saw the whole spiritual world. He saw the whole spiritual world before him. He was astonished. And then he understood what happened. Krishna was being kind to show him the spiritual world. And that he, Krishna, is none different than the presiding personality of the spiritual world. And that was being disclosed experientially to Akrura. So Akrura eventually made it back to the chariot, and Krishna smiled. And Krishna said, Akrura, you look surprised. Did you see something wonderful? And Akrura said, seeing you is seeing something wonderful. Let's go to Mathura. He kept it really simple. But Krishna gave some mercy to Akrura. A lot of mercy. A lot of mercy. So they made it to Mathura. Many things happened. But part of Kamsa's plan, there's that wicked king named Kamsa. He had a wild elephant, and not just, an elephant, humongous, like as big as 10 elephants. He was really, really big. And there's a long story of how he got the elephant. Some of you know the story. Some of you may not know the story. I'll tell it quickly. It's a nice story. A contemporary of Kamsa was another diabolical king named Jarasandha. Jarasandha. Bad guy. Jarasandha was on a tour conquering other kings. And in the course of his tour, he came across this humongous elephant. He gave it a name. Kuvalyapita was the name of the elephant. And he captured the elephant, and he put the elephant with iron stakes in the ground and chains around his ankle as he went on his conquering business. So Kuvalyapita was his elephant because he captured. But after some time, the elephant went away. The elephant pulled out the stake from the ground and ran. And so Jarasandha chased the elephant. But what happened was the elephant went flying through the air and came for a crash landing in the very same place where his camp was. Jarasandha thought, wow, this elephant is big as 10 elephants. Who tossed this elephant that distance? So he went and found out. It was Kamsa. So he said, you're good. Let's make an alliance. Let's make a friendship. And so the friendship was, you can keep this elephant and you can keep my 2 daughters. They can become your queens. Jarasandha had 2 daughters and they became Kamsa's queens. So there's 2 bad guys get together and make themselves really strong by a gift. So Kuvalyapita was in Kamsa's care. And Kamsa knew that Krishna was coming. So he got the elephant really intoxicated with liquor, wild and roaring. And there were elephant trainers that were training the elephant to trample Krishna to death. Big as 10 elephants, big guy. So what did Krishna do? When the elephant went charging at Krishna, he just went in between his legs. And then he pulled on his tail on the other end. And then he took him by the trunk and whirled him around and crashed him to the ground. He's like this 11, 12-year-old boy taking this elephant as big as 10 elephants and whirling him around and crashing him to the ground. And then he broke off his tusks. And with his tusks, he whacked the elephant till he was dead. End of Kuvalyapita. And he gave one of the elephant's tusks to Balaram. So there's this nice description I'm going to read. It's on the screen, but it's hard to see the screen. Plus, if you're looking that way, you can't look this way. So I'm just going to read. And if you want to look at the screen, you can go ahead. This is the title of the chapter. Krishna kills the elephant. Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 43. Krishna kills the elephant. Could you turn the light back on so I can read the book? Turn the light back on so I can read the book. Thank you very much. Text 14, chapter 43. Lord Hari, that's Krishna, then climbed onto the elephant with the ease of a mighty lion, pulled out a tusk, and with it killed the beast and his keepers. So the elephant's dead. The elephant trainers are dead. Text 15. Leaving the dead elephant aside, Lord Krishna held onto the tusk and entered the wrestling arena. With the tusk resting on his shoulder, drops of the elephant's blood and sweat sprinkled all over him, and his lotus face covered with fine drops of his own perspiration. The Lord shone with great beauty. So he has one tusk and Balaram has the other. My dear king, so the person speaking is Shukadev Goswami. He's narrating this to the king, Parikshit. Lord Baladev, so on the altar is Baladev. Baladev and Jagannath and Subhadra. Lord Baladev and Lord Janardana, each carrying one of the elephant's tusks on his shoulder, as his chosen weapon, entered the arena with several cowherd boys. I mean, there's lots of backstory to this, but I want to get to this one verse. The reason I'm getting to this one verse, it was quoted in the topic that I've been discussing during this visit to Central New Jersey. And the topic is the 9 stages of bhakti as described by our great Acharya Rupa Goswami. And it's towards the beginning of the book, and he's explaining that the topic of bhakti is Krishna. The topic of the Vedas is Krishna. And who is Krishna? Well, we'll hear, because I'm going to read to you the purport. Rasa Vaisaha. He is rasa. What's rasa? It's a taste or a happiness that one experiences when being in a relationship of loving service with the source of everything, Krishna. Rasa is what one experiences, the joy, the happiness, the sweetness that one experiences. So that experience of rasa is the supreme Krishna. And how one experiences Krishna depends everything upon one's heart. We'll say it the other way. The orientation of one's heart determines how you're going to experience Krishna. The same object, but different persons are going to experience the same object in a different way, depending upon the orientation of the heart. So that's what the verse is from the topic that we were discussing, during this visit. And we'll continue the next few days, the stages of bhakti. So what's a good definition of bhakti? Well, he gives a good definition of bhakti, also taken from Rupa Goswami's writings. And essentially, it's accepting things favorable for pleasing Krishna and acting with your mind and senses accordingly. Favorable for Krishna. In simple language. And what one experiences is rasa. And that rasa is Krishna. The rasa and Krishna are non-different. You want to experience Krishna through loving service. So here's the verse. This is the one that was listed as the topic for this evening. Various groups of people in the arena regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered it with his elder brother. Same person walking into a wrestling arena, and there's like a whole lot of people all over the place, including the wrestlers, including Kamsa, and then all the observers. And there's 10 different lists, 10 different experiences of the same person, depending upon their orientation of their heart. The wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt. The men of Mathura, that's the capital city, as the best of males. The women saw him as Cupid in person. The cowherd men, so there's the city men, and then there's the village men, the cowherd men. And the cowherd men, they saw Krishna as their relative. The impious rulers, they saw Krishna as a chastiser. His parents as their child, the king of the Bhojas as death, this bad king Kamsa. Here comes death, the grim reaper, death. The unintelligent as the Supreme Lord's universal form, the yogis as the absolute truth, and the Vrishnis, those are his relatives on the administrative side of his relatives, as their supreme worshipable deity. So it's a nice purport. I'd like to read the purport, but I don't know how appropriate it would be with this audience setting. There's in the purport, there's 3 acharyas that are referred to. One of them is the original commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam named Sridhar Swami, and he makes a list of these 10 rasas, or how they experience Krishna, and in the detail that's in the rest of the purport. There are 12, according to Rupa Goswami, there are 12 feelings of love for Krishna. 5 primary, 7 secondary, 5 plus 7 generally makes 12. So there's 12 rasas, and according to those different rasas, one experiences an object, although it's the same object that the different personalities are experiencing. It's really easy. There's a nice, one of many nice verses in Brahma Samhita where it's explained by Krishna to Brahma that according to one's faith, one gets realization. According to one's faith, one gets realization. Where does the realization come from? From the same place everything comes from, the source of everything, from Krishna. And Krishna sees the faith that one has, siddhi bhavati tadrashi. Yadrashi yadrashi shraddha, siddhi bhavati tadrashi. It's nice, it's very simple. Yadrashi yadrashi shraddha, siddhi bhavati tadrashi. According to one's faith, super soul, Krishna, gives realization. So Krishna is the object that's walking across this wrestling arena, and they're all seeing the same person, but according to their faith, according to their shraddha, according to their heart's orientation towards Krishna, they see something different. I'll just read a little bit. There's groups and there's diversity within the groups, but the wrestlers were these big muscle-bound guys. And Krishna is this 12-year-old boy. Mismatch. And Krishna finished them, Krishna and Balaram, because there were two main wrestlers. And then they had brothers. And Krishna and Balaram finished them all. Like Sako, finished. And then it's described that after Krishna and Balaram finished the wrestlers, these humongous guys, having already finished this humongous elephant, Krishna is looking at Kamsa out of the corner of his eye, because Kamsa was seated on a big raised seat. And Krishna wants to get him. So he jumps up, grabs him, drags him down to the wrestling arena, socks him real hard. Finished. And the people are in disbelief. So what does Krishna do? He takes him by the hair and drags him around the wrestling arena so everyone knows he wasn't just knocked out. He's finished. He's dead. The wicked king is dead. So he saw him as death personified because that's what he was. The wrestlers saw him as a thunderbolt. That thunderbolt meaning like something to be afraid of. Although they're huge guys and he's a little boy, by external appearance. But it's not just a little boy. He's the personality of Godhead who has all powers, etc. So some saw him this way, some saw him that way. The impious rulers perceived Krishna as dangerous. Actually, Krishna is everyone's friend and well-wisher, but because we rebel against him, he chastises us, and thus we may perceive him as threatening. It's a nice purport. The topic that we're discussing is to lead you. I'm referring to this verse. It's a well-known verse. It's cited again and again and again in different contexts by our acharyas because it's emphasizing the point. In the science of loving relationships, there's three things. There's the heart, that's the abode of love. And there's the object of love, and there's the feelings between the two. Three things. It's very personal. And rasa has everything to do with the heart. The object, that's Krishna, and he's the source of everything, so within Krishna is everything. Say it again. Since he's the source of everything, that means everything is within him. And so according to the orientation of the heart, one may see him this way or that way, or any n number of different ways, but he's still the source of everything. He's not reduced to being, he's only this or he's only that. So the teachings of bhakti, which is the subject matter that we're discussing during this visit, the stages of the awakening of bhakti ultimately brings one to the fullness of appreciation of, for each one of us, what is our, on the spiritual plane, our relationship with the supreme source of everything, the supreme person. And there's stages of unfolding of that realization and removing of coverings. And there's layers of coverings. And then after that, there's another layer of coverings. And after that, there's another layer of coverings. And then comes a more spontaneous stage of devotion. And then there's a steadiness rather than just regulative and doing because it's to be done, a steadiness that becomes more spontaneous. And then a stage that becomes ecstatic, not just spontaneous. And a stage that comes to the full blossom of love or prema. So that's our topic. And this is the nice verse that is used to illustrate. In the mature stage, there's diversity of loving relationships. And prior to that, there's also different ways of perceiving the same object, Krishna. But the good news is he's very kind and very loving, very friendly, very merciful. And even if someone is inimical to him, he's prepared to give them liberation. That's what happened with Kamsa. Kamsa's sins were destroyed, but his soul was liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Just like that. Is a good person to become attached to. A good person to repose loving propensity upon. So just one more sharing, and then we'll see if there's some discussion. The other sharing is not only when Krishna was almost 12 years old, but even when he was just a few days old, Kamsa sent someone to kill him. The someone that he sent to kill him was Putana. Many of you know the Putana story. Putana was bad, and she had mystic powers, and she was lethal. Her happiness, her delight was eating children. Wasn't a nice lady. So Kamsa asked Putana to help him out. Go find Krishna and kill him. So she agreed. And she had a mystic power where she could transform herself into looking like a beautiful, celestial lady. Nicely dressed, nicely decorated, all smiles, and her heart was as black as coal. And her plan, which was part of the culture at the time, ladies would come to the maternity section of a house and ask for an opportunity to see the small child and, in some cases, to feed the small child. So the mother of Krishna was very innocent, and she allowed this celestial-looking lady to come directly to the crib where her newly born child was lying in a crib. But her plan was to act as if she was a nurse and to give her breast milk, but she had smeared the nipple of her breast with virulent poison that as soon as the child took her breast, he instantly died. But you can't kill Krishna because he has a spiritual body. He doesn't have a material body that can be killed. So what did Krishna do? He accepted her motherly gesture and sucked her breast and sucked out her life, air. And she started screaming, and her body got big, several miles long, and went rushing from the house and went crashing down and knocked over the forest. But Putana was given not only liberation, but she was given, because she had acted as if a mother, she was given, her liberation was in the spiritual world as an eternal associate of Mother Jasoda, to assist Mother Jasoda in caring for Krishna. How's that for kindness? She came as a murderer, and Krishna gave her a place in the spiritual world as an assistant of Mother Jasoda in the spiritual world. And so forth. So Krishna is very kind. Krishna is very loving. Although persons may approach him with some other ideas, he's still very kind and very loving. And like Kamsa, he delivered Kamsa and gave Kamsa a position in the spiritual world. And all of the other persons who saw Krishna, it was like the perfection of their life, just to see him. So that's our topic. You can join our classes if you'd like. There's several more coming up this week. And we'll hopefully, I'm not sure we will, but hopefully we'll complete the book. As the stages of bhakti grow and grow and grow, and the creeper of bhakti grows and grows, what does it look like? And what are the stages? What are some of the obstacles that we may have to overcome as the creeper of bhakti grows and grows? And how does it mature? What does it look like when it's in a mature stage? You'll kindly join us if your time permits. It's broadcast by Zoom, I think, if you can't come. So let's see if there's some discussion. Relationship with Krishna. I see one hand in the front row up here. Do we have a portable microphone?
I have a question, but first a quick comment on the Putana story.
About the which story?
Yeah, the Putana.
Putana story.
When she fell and died and crashed down on the forest, it happened to be Kamsa's special orchard that she destroyed. So his plan backfired in two ways. My question is this. In our neophyte stage, before we...
He wants to change your microphone. He didn't even ask you. He just took the other one.
Do they have microphones in the spiritual? In our neophyte stage, we haven't realized our particular rasa with Krishna yet.
Not yet.
Can we aspire for a particular kind of rasa even though we haven't realized it?
At a certain stage, then there's some, yes, but we're not at that. Most of us are not at that stage. That's a short answer.
What's
You got a longer one?
Right, because I may not be at that stage, so you're saying I shouldn't aspire.
We're most of us are at the stage where it would just be mental speculation to think this is my rasa or that's my rasa or something like that. At our stage primarily is the mood that my existence is to be engaged in service to the master. I'm the servant, he's the master in all circumstances of life. And as that grows, and the other conception of I'm the enjoyer starts to diminish and peel off and fall away, as it becomes more of a spontaneous mood of loving service, then is the stage when some inclination in serving in a particular rasa will be bestowed. So how is it bestowed? It's the same as I said before. Yadrashi yadrashi shraddha sthiti bhavati tadrashi. It's Krishna bestows when one is mature enough in bhakti life that when something is indicated, one knows how to handle it. And knows because Rupa Goswami gives teachings how to handle it. And one who has become familiar with the teachings of bhakti sufficiently, then you'll understand what that indication is and how to move with it. And until then, it's just going for a ride in the chariot of the mind. Not advised.
I wasn't thinking so much of this is my relationship, but rather I would like to, I aspire to have this relationship. I don't have it. This is what I would like.
I don't. It's not recommended at our stage. What's recommended at our stage is just the mood of being the servant. And in time, because Krishna is very kind, he'll reveal. In time, Krishna will reveal, not, leaning this way or leaning that way. Now, having said that, the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have a natural encouragement in the direction, minimally in the direction of the love that exists in Vrindavan. And the love that exists in Vrindavan has a particular mood, but it's not a particular rasa. It's just a mood of sweetness and intimacy as opposed to majesty. Now, this topic is probably a little bit above the head of most of the people in our audience, and so I think we should go for a different topic next. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Haribo.
Thank you for the class. So is being inimical one of the rasas, like Kamsa or Shishubala, being inimical towards Krishna? Is it?
That's not a rasa. The inimical per se is not a rasa, but fear is.
Fear is okay.
But a lot depends upon what the object. So in Kamsa's case, I mean, I didn't go into it, but he had dreams. He had bad dreams before Krishna came, that he was, how he was going to be dismembered by Krishna. He was afraid. When someone is afraid of something, their mind goes to that something. He was very Krishna conscious. Not out of love, so it's not a rasa of love. It's absorption of the mind due to fear. So it's indirect. Is that okay?
Just had like one more follow up on that.
Okay.
So how is it that to an external observer, right? Like we see a person like Kamsa attaining moksha. And on the other hand, we see like great devotees like Prahlad who have sacrificed everything, right, with utmost faith. How is it that they both reach the same destination?
Well, first of all, they didn't reach the same destination. If you want to include the destination of moksha, you can say same destination. But there's something very special about Krishna. And just to keep it simple, there are other forms of the Lord that appear, and those forms of the Lord have two main businesses: protecting the devotees and putting the demons in their place, and sometimes, in some cases, killing them. because they're unstoppable otherwise. But those who are killed by other than Krishna, they don't get the same thing that Kamsa got. For example, I can share this with this nice devotee in the front row, and some of you who are newer aren't going to know what I'm talking about. So I keep it simple, but because you're a nice devotee. The gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, Jai and Vijay, we talked about this a little bit during the seminar on the stages of bhakti. So Jai and Vijay were gatekeepers in Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is the spiritual world. And they prayed to Lord Narayana, we know that you have a desire for chivalry. That's a secondary rasa. It's one of the 7. We know you have that desire. But who is there to be a competitor for you in Vaikuntha? If you so desire, we can do that service. So he gave them the opportunity to do the service. And this thing, that thing, the other thing happened. And they took 3 births as demons in opposition to the Supreme Lord. Now listen carefully. The first and the second time, they didn't get liberation. The third time was Kamsa. Well, actually, it wasn't Kamsa. It was Shishupal and Dantavakra. They got liberation. But Kamsa got liberation. All those who were killed by Krishna got liberation. That's not what happened with those who were killed by Lord Nrsimhadev and Lord Ramachandra. They didn't get liberation because they took their birth again. Clear? So there's something special with Krishna. Whatever, any interaction with him is very, very special. Okay. There's more to say. Hey, there's a hand up in the back. I'm glad I ended class a little bit earlier because I thought there might be some nice questions.
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. So very nicely you described about the Russia and described the Krishna's pastimes. So I have a questions about the Bhishma Pitamaha with Krishna's relationship, chivalry relationship. I think that there is some first canto describe these things. Bhishma Pitamaha. So after Bhishma Pitamaha,
After what?
after Bhishma
Yapita? Bhishma. You're on Bhishma topic. Okay. We change the channel.
I'm talking about the Rasa, chivalry Rasa.
Chivalry Rasa, the Bhishmadev express. Chivalry Rasa about Bhishma offering to Krishna. You want to
talk about Bhishma's offering to Krishna? That's what you want to talk about? Chivalry. Okay, got it. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you so well.
No problem.
No
because
problem.
my pronunciation is not good also. That's the reason. Question is that after leaving his body, Bhishma leaving his body, where did he go? Where did he go to the Vaikuntha or Goloka?
Bhishma?
Bhishma Pitamaha.
Oh, what do you think? I mean, he was thinking of Krishna and he was seeing Krishna when he left his body. What happens when you're thinking of Krishna and you're seeing Krishna when you leave your body? Punarjanmana. Correct?
Yes. So I'm thinking that there is innumerable Vaikuntha planet where
Yes.
he went to
Which one he went to? That's what your question is? Which Vaikuntha planet did he go to? That's what you want to know?
Yes.
Yes? I've never heard that question before. You get a prize for, the most unique question I've heard.
Okay, Dandavad Pranam, Maharaj.
Well, it's a little esoteric, but who Bhishma was before he was Bhishma? Do you know who Bhishma was before he was Bhishma?
Yes, he was a great sage.
He was a Vasu,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And Vasus aren't in the spiritual world. They're in the material world, but they're very powerful. But he attained the spiritual world. So now, which of the Vaikuntha planets did he achieve? I'll research it. I don't know the answer. Anybody in the room have the answer to his question? Which spiritual planet did Bhishma Dev attain? Because it was the spiritual world, because he saw Krishna, thought of Krishna. Mama nusmara yujya. So whenever you think of Krishna, you're going to go to Krishna. Antakali chamam. I'll research it. If I can find it, I'll let you know.
Sure, Maharaj.
Okay. Anyone else? I see a hand up in the back. Can we bring you the microphone? We have two of them. Which one do you want?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I would like to know more about the rasas you were going to speak about. I don't know about the 12 rasas.
You want to know about them?
Yes.
There's 12. Okay.
That I think you said 12 or 5.
There's 5 primary.
Right.
And there's 7 secondary.
Okay.
5 plus 7 equals 12.
Okay.
Usually.
Okay.
Okay. So
if you can at least name them to me.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll say something. Give him the microphone. I'll say something, but I'll also point you to where you can get much more than a little something. The place where you can go to is Nectar Devotion. Have you heard of that book? Okay. There's lots in there. But the primary, and they're sequential. We'll start over here. Neutrality, servitorship, that's number 2. Friendship, like Arjuna, Krishna's friend. Parental affection, and conjugal affection with Krishna. Neutrality, servitorship, like Krishna's chariot driver. He has a chariot driver named Daruka, and his mood is just being Krishna's servant. He has a friend in Vrindavan who has the same name, but he's a different person, and that's a friendship relationship. Or like Arjuna was in relation to friend, as well as his devotee. Then parental affection and conjugal affection. Those are the 5 primary. It's a detail, but I'll share a little detail. According to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, because passive adoration is neutral, there isn't direct service. It's not so much gets a lot of headlines or spotlight or attention in the life of Vaishnavas because it's neutral. Awe and veneration without service, neutrality. So the emphasis with Lord Chaitanya's teaching goes to servitorship, friendship, parental affection, conjugal love, for 4 out of the 5 primary. And then there's 7 secondary rasas. And so one of them, for example, is astonishment. So here's an example of astonishment. Mother Jasoda has heard from the cowherd boys that Krishna ate dirt. So she came with her hands on her hips and said, "Your friend said you ate dirt." Krishna said, "They're lying." Mother Jasoda said, "Even your brother, your well-wisher elder brother, he said you're eating dirt." Krishna said, "They're lying." She said, "Okay, then open your mouth and I can see if you ate dirt." So Krishna opened his mouth wide, and what did she see? She saw the whole cosmic manifestation. And she had an experience of a secondary rasa of astonishment, which then Krishna removed that vision and she came back to normal, being the mother, the parental affection. So that's an example. There's other examples of secondary rasas, but the purpose of secondary rasas is it strengthens and enhances the primary. For some time, it's like a wave that may cover the shore of the land, but then it recedes again. Because the primary rasa is the primary rasa, and the secondary rasa may take prominence for some time, but then it recedes. And the primary rasa is there all the time anyways. So it enhances the primary rasa. Would you like? I'll give you one more example. They're similar. One more example is it's in Ramchandra's pastimes, where there's feelings of separation or sadness when Ram Chandra, who is to become the king, is told by his father, because of a promise made to his stepmother, you will not become the king. You'll go to the forest for 14 years. And he expects that his son is going to rebel. And Ramchandra says, is that all, father? I'll leave at once. His father fainted. He was feeling so sad that he had to not have his son become the king. And then he went around and told everybody, and they're feeling sad, and they're feeling sad in different ways. So it's like an ocean of sadness. But it's a secondary rasa that enhances the primary rasa. And in the end, he becomes the king. So everything's nice again. But there's this whole bunch of sadness for quite some time until he comes back, and then it's nice again. So secondary rasas seem to overlap or eclipse the primary rasa, but it strengthens and nourishes the primary rasa. That's their function. Although it may look like something else for some time. And that's what the seven do. They strengthen the primary. Okay, I think we should end. And what's next? What happens next? You want to take a microphone?
Thank you, Maharaj. So let's thank His Holiness Romapada Maharaj with a loud Haribol, Haribol, Haribol.